Sorry, lowest point. In middle school, I definitely struggled a lot. I think everybody has these struggles in middle school because you're trying to be a person, but you're also 11 or 12 or 13 or 14, which fucking sucks, which is just a terrible time to be alive. And you do cringy shit, which is fine. The cringy shit's fine. I'm cringy now. So you can imagine how cringy I was when I was 13. Awful, just embarrassing. But I just remember, this is so like nuanced, but I was really struggling with fitting in, which but I think that for me I started struggling a lot with my culture, which is a completely different thing that you don't really expect, especially when you born here, grow up here. When you're younger, having a different culture is like cool. Like in elementary school, people are like, oh, it's so cool that your parents like do this and that you have this culture. And then as you get older, and
there is that struggle. It's like around like middle school, high school.
It's around middle school where you're just like, I feel so fucking weird. I feel like an outcast. And originally it wasn't even with people making me feel like that. It was more of myself. Like I was feeling, it's like imposter syndrome, honestly, because you don't feel like you 100% fit into the culture that you grew up in and you live in every single day, and that I am an American, obviously, and then it's like you get older and you're like, but I'm not like fully American, like, I'm not like American, I'm Iranian American. And then I'm sitting there and I'm like at home with my parents and I'm like, oh, but I don't really fit in here either because I didn't grow up there. I only go there in the summer. And you start feeling like you're like lying almost, which is something I really struggle with because I kind of have a weird, like, I feel like everybody struggles with their identity always. So, and like, I think that's kind of what started me getting so into things that I liked. I wanted to put myself, like, I wanted to just be like, oh, this is like something, like all of my interests. I was like, well, this is something that I know is mine. And I know that I'm like good. Like, I know that I know a lot about. And I think that's kind of where it came from because I felt like I belonged into that. And then obviously, like, in middle school, everyone's fucking racist for some reason. Like, I don't know why the fuck everyone gets so racist.
Was your middle school and high school diverse?
My middle school was, but I was in the CBG program, which is the center-based gifted program. So we were really like alienated and isolated, and it was just not very diverse. And so for me, I think I was really pushing to fit in with something that I wasn't a part of. And on top of that, I think I just felt like shit because I was like, I started to, and this is something that's really like, I guess, dark, but I started to hate that I was from somewhere else. And I started to hate that I looked the way that I did. And I started to hate that I didn't fit in. I was like, why can't I just be fucking normal? And it's like, I was normal. I am like, I'm a person. I am normal. It's normal to be like, from a different place.
But you can't really, there's no normal.
Right. Yeah. There's no normal, but it's like, I was like, why can't I just be like everybody else? Like, why do I have to, why do I look like this? Why do I have all these, like, these cultural things or like these, like this background that nobody else has? I was like, why am I so fucking weird and different? And so I kind of took that into pushing myself down and just not necessarily, because I was acting like myself. I was just acting like a kid. Like, I wasn't doing anything like consciously, but subconsciously I was like pushing myself down to fit into things that I felt like were acceptable or normal, or like I didn't want to be like, people like, oh, like, you're from Iran. I was like, yeah, but like, whatever, it's like not that big of a deal. And it's like I was minimizing myself for no fucking reason. Like, and now that I look back on it, I get really upset with myself because it just grosses me out that I would do that I would think that was like a necessary thing to do. And of course, like, it wasn't 100% like intrinsic. Like, it definitely came from feeling like I didn't belong, whether that be purposeful or not. Like, you're always going to try to fit in or whatever. But I feel really embarrassed when I talk about that because I'm just like, ew, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, that is so weird.
I've had that moment.
Right?
Like, when I bring like a Filipino dish in like middle school, and then they're like, the white kids are like, what the fuck are you eating?
It smells weird. It smells weird. So weird.
Like,
and you get like upset and you get embarrassed.
And you don't have the cool lunchbox. Exactly. My lunchbox is a little shopping bag. Like, why are you eating rice all the time?
Right? And it's like, it sucks. And it's like, I get it. Like, I understand the curiosity. And like, obviously when you don't have a different culture, you're going to be more inclined to question other people's culture. But it's like, it was just so like nasty. I felt so nasty when I got older and I realized, I was like, why are you like making yourself small?
Would you say like because of what happened in middle school, like what you were describing, like feeling out of place with your culture and kind of like repressing that, would you say now like you embrace it even more because like you've learned from it, or it's still like something that you're working on?
Well, I think, see, what I was lucky enough is that when I was feeling that way, my mom would take us to Iran every summer. So I was not completely, I couldn't alienate myself from the culture, which I'm thankful for, because I feel like if I hadn't been going to Iran, I definitely would have like just tried to shun it altogether. But I wouldn't say that I necessarily, like, I'm not like, I mean, I would say I'm pretty outward with how Iranian I am for the most part. I feel like I talk about it all the fucking time. But I definitely think that, yeah, that's a good point. As I got older, I think I didn't necessarily want to like, because I mean, I'm an American, and I'm American as fuck. I'm white as fuck. But so fucking boring. Not that white people are boring, but I'm boring. But I definitely try to at least, I try not to minimize it or hide it. And I try to just be like I am an American who's also Iranian type thing.
Yeah.
Or I'm an Iranian and I'm an American type beat. I'm allegedly. No, but
so
yeah.
you're from Iran and you're vegetarian.
And I'm vegetarian. Do I look like those two things? Please comment.
You look very vegetarian.
Is there a specific thing you had to tell yourself or do with yourself that you came up from those struggles of wanting to hide your culture?
I think the number one thing was that I, first of all, felt icky about it. But I started to feel so guilty because I was like, I mean, I love my parents so much, and I love my family in Iran, all my family. And I was like, why? Like, I was like, why? Like, who the fuck do you think you are to silence that or put that away? Like, what is there to be embarrassed about? You know what I mean? And I think that was the number one thing, is just reminding myself that I was like, first of all, I like being Iranian. I think it's fun. I think it's fun to make fun of Iranians. I do that all the time. I make fun of my parents all the time. I make fun of myself all the time. But secondly, I think it's such a rich and diverse and beautiful culture. And I'm like, why would you want to not participate in that when you can fully, and you can fully embrace it? And that was something that I definitely reminded myself. And I was also thinking, like, I would like look at old pictures of my parents, or I just think about my parents. I'm like, these are the best people I've ever met in my entire life. And their culture is so, and their culture, I mean, their culture is better than mine because they're actually Iranian people. I am too, but you know, like
they're first at hand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like they grew up there. They like, that's their whole life. And it's like, it's so cool to me. And so I was like, and I, especially because I appreciate other people's cultures so much. I love learning about new cultures. I think it's so incredible. Like whatever country it is, like I love to learn about new cultures and things like that. So I'm like, why are you, like, you have one, you literally have one. So you should like dive into that.